Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. Always excited about the awesome phone guests we have. When I go and tape in the studio for 4, 5, 6 weeks of episodes or 8 weeks, I love doing the radio call-in, and I think we have our caller from France. But first, I want to welcome the program my co-host, Peter Elvidge, for the radio portion / television call-in portion of the show. Peter, how are you, and how are things going?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm looking forward to hearing about our guests, and let's just get right into it.
Some tremendous guests, first of all. And before I put this guy on the line, we have an author of Pancakes in Paris. His name is Craig Carlson, and he's an ex-American that opened up a restaurant, an American-style restaurant in Paris. So I'm excited to welcome to the program as I'm jumping back Craig Carlson, author of Pancakes in Paris. Craig, are you on the line?
Hello.
How are you?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you perfectly.
Doing great. I'm calling from Paris.
Oh, my. It's such a great... Thanks for being on the show. Craig, when I think about your story, and I was just reading up on it now, I'm absolutely blown away. Why would you try to open up an American-style restaurant in Paris? What was your thoughts when you did that?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first, I just love Paris. I had come over as a student and studied here my junior year, and to learn the language, to learn the culture, and I just loved it here. And years later, when I was working in film and television, I worked on a TV show over here.
Okay.
And after the third season, I was missing breakfast so much, I decided, you know what, this place would be perfect if there was a breakfast joint.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
The idea just came to me.
So what kind of breakfast do they offer in Paris usually? You're missing the American-style type of pancake breakfast. What kind of stuff would you get in Paris before you opened up your restaurant?
Yeah, exactly. In Paris, you either have a croissant or pain au chocolat, or maybe part of a baguette with some butter. And a lot of my French friends, they don't even do breakfast at all. They actually joke that they have a cigarette and an espresso, and that's their breakfast. So it's not in the culture here to do breakfast. And, you know, when I'm here, when you're visiting as a tourist, it's not so bad. But when you're living here as an expat for a long period of time like I was, you really start craving, just good breakfast, a good hearty breakfast in the morning. So...
I understand. Hello? For sure. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. So basically, then you did it. You took the chance, right? You said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up this restaurant. What was your experiences in restaurants before that?
Well, that's the thing. I had next to no experience at all. I had once worked as a dishwasher when I was 16 in my hometown in a restaurant, but that was it. And I also had no business experience. I never had my own business. I didn't go to business school. I went to film school. And so coming over to do the riskiest business there is in a foreign country, in a foreign language, and in the culinary capital of the world, you can imagine it was just a huge, huge challenge.
And my co-host, Peter Elvidge, he'll come and jump in with questions when he has questions, Peter. But a very interesting story so far we're learning from our guest, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah, I actually do have a question. So from my experiences of learning how to create a business and create a brand and everything, I've just been generally curious from different business owners, because creating a business is very challenging. What would you say in your situation was the most difficult thing to overcome, and then how did you overcome that?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. I think, first of all, just learning business from scratch. I went and I got it's called Business Pro. It's a software program to come up with a business plan, right? And when I did the business plan, I realized I had to raise $100,000 for the seed money, so I could get a loan from the French banks. And honestly, that was probably the hardest part was trying to find investors.
Right.
And so that took a very long time. And then once that obstacle was done, I had to do it all in France. I had to set up the French company. I had to find a location. I had to get a loan, all these things. So I think the hardest part for me was just learning how to put a business together, the actual numbers, crunching the numbers, getting the investment money, and then, of course, location.
Wow.
In a restaurant business itself has its own particular challenges, which the most important, location. And so that was a big challenge. And then there's many more after that.
Right, and that's a great question that Peter just asked, and I just look at it, Craig, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, you had no business experience, no restaurant experience. You didn't know what the best location was. So you were the greatest student, right? Reading books, learning certain things before you jumped and made the investment, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think people have asked me about that, and I said, you really have to be curious and you have to listen. So I sought out restaurant owners, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and so I spoke to all these diner places, and I picked their brains. But then there was also a fun part of the research. I took part in Pittsburgh, a Dinerama festival, it was called. And basically, I went out there for a week with all these diner lovers, and we explored different diners throughout Pittsburgh and tasted the food and looked at the locations and, what the ambience is, how to capture that feeling of what an American diner feels like. And so that was a fun part of the research. But, yeah, it was just big, so many things.
So the research of going and testing all the food, right? Trying the different foods, seeing the different breakfast style restaurants that are out there and what your favorite was so that you had a kind of idea what you wanted to model, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I had been living, like I said, living in LA at the time, and I had my favorite places. But until I put on my business cap, and looked at it as an entrepreneur, then I started seeing things differently. I started seeing how each place had its own little characteristic, how it had its own personality, which is so important to this kind of business because it's a neighborhood business. And so, diners where people, everyone knows each other. It's a community, and that's what I wanted to build in Paris, and that's what we were able to do. So. Yeah, you have to get all those little subtle things, that feeling, that feeling when you walk in the door. That's the hardest part to capture.
Yeah, it's the hardest part to capture. And I think about it, like I think of there's a restaurant that's really different in Pittsburgh. It's Pamela's. Mm-hmm. And Pamela's has the best pancakes / waffles. And you're really treated like your family there. And when you go into Shady Side in the Pittsburgh area, you're treated like family. You walk in, you sit down, you're not getting the Eaton Park Denny's type breakfast, or you're going to get something that's well done. They're going to care. They're going to serve you, and you're going to be full afterwards. It's not like you're going to say, I feel.
Yeah, and you're going to know what you want as well. We have a customer in our restaurant who's from New York. He lives here, and every morning he comes in. We don't even bother putting what the dishes. We'll just put his name. His name is Neil as well. We just put Neil.
Okay.
And you put that on the bill, and the kitchen knows. It's great.
When are you going to fly me out to Paris to check out your restaurant and cover your restaurant?
Yeah, right. It's part of your research trip.
Yes. Go ahead, Peter.
I had one more curious question. So,
sure.
Because I'm just generally curious, like the whole difference between American breakfast and then breakfast in Paris. Do you happen to have like social media? Do you do YouTube in any form, like where you're showing like the differences, or maybe your restaurants or what you make, or anything like that?
Yeah, that came a little bit later because I actually opened in 2003, so it was fairly early for all that. But I had a website up right away, so I used that part of the social media, and just the different organizations in the city. There's so many schools, and there's expat organizations to help people who are moving over to France. All those kind of things. And the American University in Paris, I got a lot of people from there. I took them over, so. We did really, really a lot of word of mouth and just grassroots kind of campaign,
So that grassroots campaign, but you had to find the location. I've never been to Paris, but you had to find a location. And I'm sure that everyone in Paris, the locals, were chomping at the bit of you opening this restaurant, right?
I don't know about that. That's interesting. Yeah, it's like, I come over, I'm very, very, a bit naive and just come over all optimistic and everything. And so I think it was interesting because a lot of French people told me that my optimism and my, upbeat nature was actually, contagious. They really liked that. So I was able to find this great location. But there's a whole story about the first one that I ended up losing, which just almost cost me the business. But that's a great whole other story. But I eventually found the perfect one in the Latin Quarter, and you know, that I can tell you a little about if you want as well. But,
yeah, we're definitely going to get to that, and then I want to find out about writing the book and the success of the book, what's going now, and how people can go in and find it. I just getting 2 segments with you. It's very interesting, and I can tell you that you're a different type of author because, again, you were involved in Hollywood and the film and all that whole game. So this is easy for you, right? This is promoting your book. You're used to promoting when you were in the other business, right?
Yeah, a little bit. But it's a very different animal, as you can imagine. You know, it's a memoir, so it's very personal. And so, you know, it's a story of my life, essentially, but centered around this restaurant. And so, yeah, no, I would love to talk about that.
Okay, let's first go into, like you said, the location, finding that location.
Yeah.
So you wanted it to be in the vicinity where a lot of Americans come, right? Because that's your first clientele. I know probably people from Paris come too, but that's the first clientele base that you know it's going to come every day.
Yeah, in the beginning, yes. In the beginning, because, again, since French don't eat breakfast, yet they know breakfast. You know, the French people come to America, you know, as tourists a lot, and they love our breakfast. It's just, it's not in their culture here. So, but in the beginning, I knew I had to attract Americans, so expats and students. So I was looking in the area where the Sorbonne, you know, and that's where we ended up finding the great location. So it's right next to students, both American and French. And so that was like the crucial point. But then later, you know, as time goes on, we're now flipped. It's 70 to 80% French people are our clientele. But in the beginning, it was the completely opposite.
So Peter, he's teaching French people how to like an American breakfast, Peter. So what's your favorite thing for breakfast, Peter? What do you like to eat?
You know, definitely when I was looking at the book bio and everything, definitely pancakes it's definitely on the top of my list. You know, with eggs and of course bacon. Everybody's got to love bacon. But you know, it's interesting because I'm looking at the book and I'm just curious because I'm interested to find more out for myself. Does your book come in an accessible copies by chance, like audio or the digital?
Yes, it does actually. Yeah, the audio version I just listened to during my book tour. 9 hours, 9 CDs. It was a Broadway actor who's doing the reading, and it's just amazing to hear my story by this professional, you know, actor doing the different voices and the characters, and bringing a whole new level to the story, which I loved. And there's also it's on Kindle and of course trade paperback.
Okay, so when we get back, we're gonna continue with our conversation with Craig Carlson. We're gonna go into basically the whole situation about the book, why he wrote the book. Now, I mean, I'm intrigued to know about his restaurants and the success, but why did he write the book? You're watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.
One of the things we do at BPTV is encourage our producers to film on location. Not only does shooting on location give our producers the opportunity to take advantage of their subject matter, filming in different locations gives each program its own distinct flavor. This also helps anyone who's flipping through the channels avoid confusion when they turn on BPTV. With around 500 programs produced at BPTV each year, the last thing we want people to think is that we're only broadcasting one program. So, you need to come into BPTV to pitch your TV show, but in terms of where you actually end up taping your show, the sky's the limit.
We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and I'm with my co-host Peter Elvidge, and we're talking to Craig Carlson, author of Pancakes in Paris, Living the American Dream in France. And Craig, I'm sure that the French love that part, living the American dream in France, that quote, right, in your book. That line.
Yes, they do actually. Yes, because the American dream is mythic in France, you know.
Yeah.
So yes.
All right. So, and I hear we could definitely know you're in Paris with that siren that just went by.
Yeah, do you hear? I'm waiting for Jacques Clouseau to come. You know.
Yeah.
Come walking in.
Let's see. That's
your dog.
Yes. When are we going to have some conversation with some more people from Paris? So let's kind of go, Craig. Why write the book? You're an entrepreneur. You're very busy running your restaurants and stuff like that. Why did you write the book? Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's another great question. There's two reasons because you know, I won't lie to you. Doing business in France is extremely hard, more difficult than I could have imagined, and the stress levels from it. I ended up actually in the hospital.
Oh my!
I collapsed one day on the river Seine. I was jogging and ended up in the hospital. As I'm laying in the hospital bed, I'm like, how did I end up here? You know, this whole entire journey. And as I thought about it, I realized. First thing, I just needed to fall back in love with Paris again, you know,
right.
Because France had been such a part of my life, and now, you know, it was essentially killing me. And so, and the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, I think this could make a great story.
Exactly.
And then when I started writing it, I was thinking this could be a great inspirational story because given my background, I also come from, you know, a working class family in Connecticut, and you know, the first my family to go to college, and you know, like I said, the whole American dream thing. And I said, you know, if I could do this impossible feats, you know, hopefully that can inspire some other people to follow their dreams. And so those were the two reasons that really motivated me.
Then once you had the manuscript, shopping it around to make sure you find the right people and stuff, that's a challenge too, right?
Oh, I have a great story about that because I actually was here in Paris working on the whole proposal and the manuscript. And I went to a writers' conference. I said, you know, I need to get some help on this. I went to a writers' conference in California, and there were two agents there. And the first one met with me, closed the door, said, I just read your proposal last night. I don't tell anyone. I want to sign you here on the spot. You know, if I got this in my office, I would have done a little dance. And I was like, oh, my God, this never happened to me in Hollywood, you know. And then just then, my phone in my pocket started buzzing, and it was the other agent who was at the conference, at the retreat. And she said, meet me down at the cafe at 3 o'clock. I read your proposal. I want to sign you. So I ended up having two agents at this retreat wanted to sign me. It was amazing. And I went with the first one. And her name's Andrea, and she's amazing. And she found my publisher, and it's been great.
And see, that's interesting when you talk about that. And Peter, it's not easy to get published. And I know Craig will kind of get into that more. But Peter, any other questions so far for Craig?
Not at the moment, but I've definitely, like, with my own writings and with my own sharing my own story, it's been interesting to kind of sharing that to other people. Both, you know, it's just kind of a compulsion to share it, but also you as you're writing it, you're kind of like, this could help other people, and that's what I think is so awesome about, you know, writing and sharing people's stories. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I've been getting emails from people saying that, you know, after reading your book, I have no excuse now not to pursue my dream, you know, and to get off my butt and, you know, do what I wanted to do. So that gives me greatest satisfaction of anything.
Did the agents say what really caught their fancy to say they wanted to pick you up? What was the story? What was it?
She did actually say a couple things. She said the voice. She felt like that just the sort of this underdog, but this optimism, this eternal optimism against all obstacles. Just something about that really appealed to her, and she just wanted to sort of root for the person. And the subject matter itself, because there's a lot of memoirs on France, and a lot of great memoirs, but there is none quite like this, because no one's done a diner before. So I thought she got excited about the angle of the memoir. So.
In the years you've had your diner, did ever the U.S. come out and film you at the diner, especially because it's so different to have an American-style breakfast diner in France? Did you ever get like the news come and cover you and film your diner?
Oh, yes. In fact, we were open not only even a month. And this reporter kind of came in undercover. I mean, he didn't say anything, but I had sort of a suspicion he was up to something. And at the end, it was a reporter from the Time Out magazine. and he did an article on us, and then from there on in, there was just so much coverage. But also I have to say that we opened in 2003, January 2003, which is right when the war in Iraq was about to start. And so the press was coming in to see what the reaction was from the French customers, from the American customers. And so this whole unexpected angle came in, you know. And at one point, the Hollywood Reporter wrote an article on us and it said that we were a cultural crossroads for conflicting countries. And I thought that was wonderful, you know, that two cultures get together during this, you know, time, sort of as a haven at our place. So that was wonderful. So yeah, we've gotten a lot of press. A lot of TV shows have come here as well, French TV shows particularly.
Well, it's interesting. And so I was thinking, has any of those diners shows from the U.S. come out to film you yet, like the Food Network or any of those type of different travel shows?
Oh, yeah, no, that's my dream, is to get Guy Fieri there. It would be so much fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Pull up in an old American car and...
It's going to happen,
you know.
Especially what I'm hearing about the success so far of the book, which we'll talk about at the end, that, it's going to happen. You're going to have those shows come out or Adam Richman of the Travel Channel. It's going to happen. Trust me. I have a feeling.
And don't forget, a lot of people are just need a little an excuse to come to Paris, right?
Yeah.
That's a good thing too.
Yeah, get them on social media. Start tweeting out all the top people that like to travel to these places, and then say, I'm inviting you to come. Like I said, if you can find out a way to get me a plane ticket out there, I'll come cover you. But but those guys are the big wigs, But any excuse to get any excuse.
Thanksgiving, we do a great Thanksgiving.
any excuse to go to Paris. Now, Craig, so so finally the book was finished. Writing it, that's an arduous task. Finally putting it all, your whole story on paper, it's challenging.
Yeah. It was such a challenge.
Yeah.
Tell me the question, sorry.
Yeah, the question is the challenge. Explain to us how arduous a task it was for you to write that and everything.
Yeah, honestly, because I had written screenplays before, and even I had written one screenplay that was a bit personal, but this was a whole different animal because it's just the scale of doing a memoir. It's 300 pages long, and to really kind of expose myself in the story, because I go through a lot of change and throughout the story, and just having the experience in France, I ended up falling in love in France, and so many other unexpected things. And so, there were times that they were just so emotional, and also just felt like, how do I get this done? It's such a huge task. And of course, the structure, I wanted it to be entertaining and be compelling as well. And the art of memoir is what not to tell. You don't want to tell about everything. You have to focus on the most important elements, and to make it compelling. So I think all those challenges were huge.
Definitely, the art of the memoir, writing it. Then once it's finally finished, you finally see it, and you can pick it up in your hand. That's an accomplishment, right? To finally.
Oh yes, and I remember when the box of the copies arrived, and I just held it. I couldn't believe it. It was like holding a baby. It really is like having a baby. And although I don't have children, but it's the closest thing.
I'm trying to write my book, Craig, and of all my celebrity interviews, but yet I need a team to help me with this because I'm so busy, and I can't wait till finally it'll happen. I've been talking about it for X times, and I'm hoping at one point this ends up happening, but I have to get the ball rolling because you got to start writing, and it's interesting when you look at writers. Peter, any more questions for Craig? You have another question for Craig?
Yeah, so another question I was curious is from my standpoint, because I'm not the best writer, but I'm just generally curious for writing my own. What types of tips would you either give me or give someone who's wanting to write their story?
That's interesting because I think I read some memoirs before, but then I read Stephen King's On Writing, which is just a great book. And he says, read while you're writing. Mm-hmm. And I think that just helps so much because it just gets your brain, almost like when I was learning a new language, when I was learning French, right? You have to sort of immerse yourself in it. And the brain needs time to accustom and warm up, right? So I think I read I read Julia Child's My Life in France, and then I read the Starbucks Schultz, his book on Pour Your Heart Into It, the whole Starbucks thing. And then David Sedaris, I would read him because of his great, voice and how funny he was, and how he could just say things with such economy of writing, So I would recommend that. And then also just, find 3 or 4 or 5 readers that you really trust. Mainly one main one.
Okay.
And Stephen King calls it, your preferred. I can't remember what he calls it again, but your one reader that you can trust, and then won't hold back, but will be supportive at the same time because you don't want to be crushed, while you're working on it.
Yeah.
So finding that balance is really important. And mine was Paula. She was amazing, a dear friend of mine. So. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so I saw that you have a diner tour. You have all these different things. So tell us where we can find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you, and some of the updates on the tour.
Great. Well, first and foremost, I like to support independent booksellers. And in September, my book was chosen for the Indie Next list.
All right.
And what that is the independent bookstores across America vote on the books they want to promote. And in September, I'm on the list. So if you go on Indie Next list online, you'll see I'm in the company with Underground Railroad and many other great books. So that's such a thrill to me. So they have actually where you can find it in an independent bookstore near you. And then of course there's Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and the major places.
And also your diner tour, is that started yet, or has that already happened with where you're going?
Oh, that's happened. We did 17 cities throughout the West Coast and New York. I just got back 2 days ago here in Paris, and we have 4 events here.
Wow.
So it's actually still going on. It's just now in France. And last night we did the launch of the book in Paris at this very old bookstore in one of the oldest streets of Paris in the Latin Quarter. And we had 70 people and sold out of books. It was just amazing. And
Wow.
1/3 French and 2/3 English speakers, Canadians, Americans, British. It's amazing.
I know you have huge news at one point.
You see some of the photos on Pancakes in Paris on my Facebook. It's
awesome.
Great photos of the event.
And I know, Craig, it's you have other news, but you can't report it yet. You have to wait till everything is in play. But a lot of exciting things happening with this book. People need to check it out.
Yes.
And find your local independent bookstore. That's a great point. They're the bookstores that will put books in that are very interesting. It's not just like the same books staying on the shelf forever. They're always looking at great, talented authors. And they need to be supported because that's why they're there, because they want to provide great literary content for their customers. And they're the ones that...
and they create community, they create community. When these bookstores I went to, they sponsored me. They're not making tons of money off it. It's just because they want to promote,
exactly,
the community and culture, and their heart is really into it. So
I got to find out where my local independent bookstore is in Pittsburgh and visit it for sure. I cover the Miami Book Fair every year, Craig, and international, and I love talking to guys like you because, again, you worked really hard to get to where you are today, and best of luck to you, and I appreciate you calling, and thanks for coming on the show, and I hope to hear even better news later that you can kind of report about your book and any other developments for you, okay?
Yeah, I'm just dying, but you're right. I have to keep it in the bag.
Yep. Don't worry.
It's been a pleasure. It's been such a pleasure. Great questions. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Take care. Okay. Bye-bye. All right. That was the Neil Haley Show, guys. Bye-bye. Again, we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.